The first night after moving into her new home, a young black woman hears a child crying through the vents. Everyone insists. The house is empty, but the crying won't stop. After buying her first home in South Central Los Angeles, Tiana Moore, a 32-year-old financial analyst, expects peace and stability. Instead, she's haunted by whispers and sobbing sounds from her ventilation system. When the police find nothing and her friends doubt her, Tiana starts digging. What she uncovers is a decades-old network of missing children tied to her house and someone who will do anything to keep those secrets buried. This is a psychological crime thriller with 12 chapters, full of misdirection, old case files, and a chilling realization that the danger isn't just in the past, it's inside her walls. Quick heads up before we jump in. If you're into real stories, strange disappearances, and the kind of truths people try to bury, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell, so you don't miss what comes next. All right, let's get into it. Tiana kicked off her sneakers and let them tumble near the doorway, her shoulders sinking under the weight of a 12-hour workday. The house still smelled faintly of paint and something metallic, a reminder that the renovation crew left only a week ago. Her dream home, a 2-bedroom in South Central, wasn't much to look at from the curb, but it was hers, paid for with years of overtime side hustles and saying no to everything that wasn't essential. The neighborhood was quiet. Now, 2 quiet outside streetlights buzzed faintly, washing the block in dull orange. Inside her house was a still life, bare walls, cardboard boxes stacked like Tetris pieces, a sofa dragged from her old apartment. She liked it this way, unfinished, but hers. She popped a frozen dinner into the microwave, humming along to Shaw, when a faint sound made her pause. Not music, not the hum of the microwave. Something else. Tiana tilted her head, her brows knitting a noise, soft, broken, like crying. She muted the TV on her phone. The sound didn't stop. It was coming from the hallway. She set her fork down and walked slowly, heartbeat rising with each step. The crying was clearer, now thin, muffled, like it was wrapped in cotton. She pressed her ear to the wall. Nothing. Then she crouched by the floor, bent her palm flat against the cold grate. The sobbing drifted up from deep inside the ductwork. Small, fragile, a child's voice. "Hello?" Tiana whispered, her breath catching. The crying stopped. Silence stretched so long she thought she imagined it, until the whisper slid through the vent, low and breathy, curling around her spine like smoke. "Help me." Her body locked. She stumbled back, her pulse pounding in her ears, staring at the vent like it might open its mouth and speak again. She grabbed her phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. By the time the cops arrived, the sound was gone. The officers, a tired-looking black sergeant and his young partner, searched the house, checked the vents, walked the perimeter. They found nothing. "Old houses make weird noises," the sergeant said, jotting something on his clipboard. "Pipes, raccoons, you name it." Tiana stared at the vent, her stomach tight. That wasn't pipes. It said something. It said, "Help me." He gave her a look halfway between pity and impatience. "Ma'am, there's no sign of anyone in your house. Lock your doors. Get some rest." They left her standing in the doorway, her phone clutched like a weapon. That night, Tiana lay awake in her new bedroom, staring at the ceiling. The house breathed around her, old wood, settling distant traffic, whispering through cracked windows. Then, just as sleep began to pull her under, a voice drifted through the vent by her bed, soft as a prayer. "We're still here." The next morning, Tiana woke with the sunlight in her face and a knot in her chest. The whisper had been real. She wasn't crazy. Her first instinct was to call her best friend Janelle. But what would she say? "Hey, remember how I just bought a house?" Well, apparently, it comes with voices in the vents. Yeah, no. She brewed coffee instead, letting the bitter steam fill the kitchen. The vent near the fridge stared at her like an open wound. She crouched down, pressing her ear against it. Nothing. Just the hollow sigh of air. "Pipes, my ass," she muttered. By the time she dressed for work, the house had settled into its usual silence. Still, she kept thinking about that last whisper. "We're still here. We not." The day crawled by, numbers blurred on her computer screen. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart jumped. By the time she pulled back into her driveway at dusk, her nerves were raw. She climbed the porch steps. Slowly, her senses sharp. The door creaked open to a hush, so deep it made her ears ache, and then she saw them. Thin scratches along the hallway wall, faint like someone had dragged a fork through fresh paint. She bent closer. The marks weren't random, they formed letters. H-E-L, the last line cut off, like whoever carved was interrupted. Her throat tightened. She snapped a picture with her phone fingers trembling and sent it to Janelle. Tiana, girl, I swear this wasn't here yesterday, Janelle. Okay. That's creepy as hell. Maybe the contractors left it? Tiana, no. They finished weeks ago. Paint was fresh, Janelle. Then who did it? Tiana stared at the question, feeling the weight of the house pressing in on her. That night, she couldn't bring herself to sleep in the bedroom. Instead, she curled on the sofa with all the lights on her laptop open to a Google search. Scratches on walls after moving in, meaning. The results didn't help. Paranormal blogs, crime forums, clickbait headlines. The vent hummed softly in the corner of the room like it was breathing. By midnight, exhaustion dragged her into a shallow sleep, and that's when the scratching started. Slow, methodical. From inside the wall behind the sofa, Tiana bolted upright, her heart hammering, staring at the drywall as it pulsed faintly under the lamplight. She pressed her ear against it and froze. The voice was back. A child's whisper, closer than before. Don't let him in. The air shifted. Event exhaled warm breath across the back of her neck. Tiana spun around, and the living room window clicked open by itself. The window creaked wider as a cool draft slid into the room. Tiana's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't touched that latch, she was sure. Grabbing the nearest thing, a ceramic lamp, she edged toward the window, every nerve blazing. The street beyond was silent, except for the distant hum of traffic and the rustle of palm fronds under a full moon. She slammed the window shut and locked it, her pulse pounding so loud she barely heard her own whisper. Get a grip, T. But as she turned back toward the sofa, she froze. Through the thin curtain of the front door's glass panel, a figure stood at the edge of her driveway. Tall, motionless, watching. Her blood turned to ice. Tiana ducked, instinctively crawling across the floor until she reached the switch and killed the lights. Darkness swallowed the living room. Her chest heaved as she crouched beneath the window, peering out through the thin slit in the blinds. The figure hadn't moved, male from the shape, hoodie pulled tight, just standing there like he had all the time in the world. Tiana's fingers fumbled for her phone. She dialed 911 again, voice shaking as she whispered into the receiver, "Someone's outside my house." Just standing there. The operator spoke calmly, telling her to stay inside doors, locked officers on the way. But when the sirens came 5 minutes later, washing her walls in blue and red, the driveway was empty. The cops swept the street, checked her locks, asked the same questions. Did she get a look at his face? Any distinguishing marks? No, and no. Finally, one officer, a Latina woman with tired eyes, paused near the wall where the scratches were. She ran a finger along the faint grooves under the fresh paint. Looks old, she said. Tiana shook her head hard. It wasn't there before. The officer gave her a look like she wanted to believe her, but didn't. By the time they left, Tiana felt more alone than ever. She paced the living room phone, clutched tight, debating whether to call Janelle and beg her to come over. But it was past midnight, and something told her this was bigger than a late-night panic attack. Finally, she decided to do what she should have done yesterday, start looking into this house's past. She dug through the kitchen drawer until she found the manila folder from closing property records, inspection reports, the deed. She flipped through until she saw the previous owner's name, M.L. Jenkins. The name tickled something at the back of her mind. Familiar somehow. She pulled up Google on her phone and typed it in. The first result hit her like a blow. Local man arrested in connection with missing children case 1998. Her hand flew to her mouth. She scrolled faster, heart in her throat. M.L. Jenkins. Her house's former owner arrested 27 years ago. 2 missing kids were never found. And then buried in an old article, a quote from one of the detectives. We believe there may be evidence hidden in the home, but the ventilation system makes it difficult to. The rest of the line was cut off behind a paywall. Tiana stared at the vent near her feet. The shadows inside, it looked darker than before, like something was waiting. Then her phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. Stopped looking. Her stomach dropped. And outside, faint through the glass, the man in the hoodie was back closer this time, standing under the porch light. The glow from the porch light framed him like a silhouette cut from night. The same hoodie, the same stillness, Tiana's breath locked in her throat. Her phone slipped from her fingers and hit the floor with a dull thud. How did he get so close without a sound? She backed away, heart slamming against her ribs, scanning the room for something, anything she could use as a weapon. The ceramic lamp was still on the floor. She snatched it up, gripping it until her knuckles blanched. Then slowly she peered through the glass panel again. He was gone. No footsteps, no retreating shadow, just empty porch steps and the hum of the streetlight outside. Tiana stayed frozen for a long time, muscles trembling, listening for the smallest sound. When she finally turned to pick up her phone, the text message burned on the screen. Stop looking. Her hands shook as she typed back. Who is this? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then nothing. Tiana locked the door, deadbolt clicking like a gun cocking, and pressed her back against it. Her eyes slid to the vent near the hallway again. The darkness inside seemed alive, like it had teeth. She dropped to her knees and pried at the grate with her nails. It didn't budge. She grabbed a butter knife from the kitchen and jammed it into the corner, prying harder until the metal screeched free. A burst of warm air hit her face, carrying something. Not dust, a smell sweet and rotten like old fruit left in a hot car. Holding her breath, she reached in with trembling fingers. Her nails scraped something hard, smooth, cold. She pulled it out slowly, a plastic doll head, cracked down the middle, its glass eyes staring up with cloudy pupils. Tiana's stomach lurched. She dropped it on the floor, backing away so fast she hit the wall. Her hands shook as she turned the doll over across. The faded scalp, written in what looked like black marker, were 2 words. Keep quiet. Her phone vibrated again. Another text, last warning. She spun toward the window and screamed. The man was back, not in the driveway this time. On her porch, leaning down, his face inches from the glass. But his hoodie had slipped just enough for her to see the scar running from his lip to his jaw, and his smile slow, crooked, like he already owned her fear. Then tap, 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 he rapped his knuckles against the glass, casual as a neighbor asking for sugar. Tiana stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the doll. She grabbed her phone fingers, fumbling for 911 again, but the screen went black dead. The man tilted his head, still smiling, and raised a finger to his lips. She? Then he stepped off the porch and melted into the dark. Tiana stood frozen in the silence. He left behind the weight of that last look pressing on her chest. And then, faint as a sigh, the vent spoke again. They're still down here. Tiana barely slept. She sat on the sofa all night, with every light blazing, staring at the front door, waiting for the man to come back. He didn't. When dawn finally bled through the blinds, her body ached like she'd gone 10 rounds with someone in her dreams. Her phone was still dead, and the charger cable lay shredded near the outlet. She didn't remember doing that, didn't remember pulling it so hard that the wire frayed like nerves. The doll head lay where she dropped it, its cracked face glinting faintly in the early light. Keep quiet. The words carved into its scalp made her skin crawl. She wanted to leave, wanted to throw her keys in the ignition and peel out without looking back. But something inside her wouldn't let her. They're still down here. Those words hadn't left her head. By mid-morning, she was in the garage dragging out boxes until she found a flashlight and a rusted wrench. The access panel to the crawl space sat behind the water heater, its edges crusted with years of neglect. Her breath fogged the beam of light. As she knelt on the concrete, the panel groaned when she pried it loose, the smell hitting her like a slap stale. Air mixed with damp wood, and something sweet that made her throat tighten. She aimed the flashlight inside. A low tunnel stretched under the house, ribbed with pipes and spiderwebs. The dirt floor, uneven and wet in patches. The vent ducts snaked like silver veins above her head, and then she heard it. Not crying this time, humming. A child's voice, soft and broken, singing something she almost recognized, a lullaby. Her mother used to hum when she was small. Tiana's pulse roared in her ears. She gripped the wrench like a lifeline and slid inside her knees, sinking into cold mud. The beam of light quivered as she crawled forward, heart hammering harder with every inch. The humming stopped. Silence fell thick as earth. She crept deeper, the tunnel narrowing until the ceiling brushed her back. Just when she was ready to turn around, her flashlight caught something ahead, something pale and curved, jutting from the dirt like a root. Tiana inched closer, the beam steady now. The shape resolved into fingers. Human fingers. Her breath seized in her throat as she scraped at the soil with her free hand. The dirt came away in clumps, revealing more. A small arm, thin and brittle as sticks. She uncovered the sleeve of a faded pink sweater clinging to bone. Tiana dropped the wrench and scrambled backward, a scream clawing its way out of her chest. But as her foot kicked something soft, the scream turned to a gasp. Another arm, another body, and then the whisper came curling from the darkness like smoke. "Don't wake him." Tiana whipped around the flashlight, slicing shadows, and froze. At the far end of the crawl space, crouched so low his chin nearly touched his knees, was the man in the hoodie. Smiling, watching the beam, caught his eyes. They gleamed like glass marbles. He didn't move, didn't blink. Just whispered soft enough to make her blood freeze. "Now you know, Tiana." Bolted backward, heart punching against her ribs, scrambling so fast she cracked her elbow on the crawlspace wall. Pain exploded down her arm, but adrenaline pushed her through. She clambered out of the access panel, chest heaving, eyes wild. By the time she reached the garage door and slammed it shut, her body was vibrating with one thought: call 911. Now she raced for the kitchen, fingers clawing through drawers for her backup charger. Plugged it in, the phone lit up, 4 new texts, all from the same unknown number. Stop, 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 too late. Her breath caught, but she dialed anyway. It rang once, twice, and then the operator's voice crackled through like salvation. Tiana poured out everything: bodies in the crawlspace. A man inside her house. The threats: she didn't care if she sounded insane. The cops came fast this time. 2 cruisers sliding up the curb, lights spinning red and blue across her living room walls. She ran to the door, yanked it open like she'd been drowning, and the air outside was oxygen. 3 officers stepped in, weapons holstered, but hands near them. The lead was the same sergeant from before, his mouth tight, like he already regretted being here. "Show us," he said. Tiana didn't waste a second. She led them through the garage, heart jackhammering as she pointed to the open crawlspace. The sweet, cloying odor still hung in the air. "Down there," she said, voice trembling. 2 bodies, maybe more. The sergeant clicked on a flashlight and crouched. His boots scraped as he slid inside. A second officer followed. Their lights cut through the dark like pale sword silence. Then the sergeant's voice echoed back, flat and annoyed. "Nothing here." Tiana's stomach dropped. "What?" No, that's impossible." She dropped to her knees, peered inside, desperate to see what they saw. The tunnel was empty. Just mud pipes and old webs. No bones, no sweater, no man. Her throat locked. "I swear I saw them right there." She pointed, her hand shaking so hard it blurred. He was here. The man with the scar, he was right there. The sergeant crawled out, brushing dirt from his uniform. "Ma." He said, voice dipped in condescension. "There's nothing under your house but dirt and pipes." Tiana felt the room tilt. I'm not making this up. They were there, both of them. She wanted to scream, to claw at the floor until the bones surfaced again. But the look on his face told her what came next: the paperwork, the quiet note about mental health. the way his eyes kept flicking around the spotless garage, taking inventory of her stability. "I think you need some rest," the sergeant said carefully. "Moving's stressful. Sometimes people hear things, see things that aren't." "Stop," she snapped, voice breaking. "Don't you dare." Her hands curled into fists, nails biting her palms. "I'm not crazy." His expression softened, pity creeping in like mold. "We'll leave an extra patrol car in the area tonight, just in case." And then they were gone. Their footsteps faded. The blue and red lights bled off the walls, leaving her in a silence that roared. Tiana sagged against the door, trembling so hard her teeth clicked. When she finally lifted her phone to check the time, a new message waited on the screen. "You told." The floor vent rattled behind her, a hollow metallic shiver. She turned slowly, heart clawing its way into her throat. The grate was open. Something glinted deep inside the dark. Not eyes this time. A key, old rusted, and tied with a strip of pink fabric. As she reached for it, the vent whispered again. This time not a child's voice, but something low and sharp. "He's watching you." The key was small iron, rusted at the teeth, cool as bone in her palm. The pink fabric tied around it was frayed and faded, like it had once belonged to a child's dress. Tiana stared at it, her breath shallow. The vent exhaled warm air across her wrist, like something inside was still breathing. She almost dropped it, almost hurled the thing across the room. But then her fingers tightened, knuckles white. "If they want me to stop, I can't." She slid the vent cover back in place, locked the front door, and moved through the house like a shadow. Her mind raced. Where would this key fit? There was no locked cabinet, no basement door. And then she remembered the creak. The day she moved in, the floorboard near the hall closet had groaned louder than the others. A hollow sound like it was hiding something. She grabbed the flashlight and crouched there, now pressing her ear against the wood. It sounded empty, like an old chest echoing secret's heart. Thudding, she pried at the edges with a butter knife until the board lifted with a soft crack. The smell hit her, first dust, mildew, and something sour like sweat, trapped for years. Inside the cavity lay a tin box, its corners dented, the lid secured by a tiny rusted lock. The key slid in like it had been waiting. Tiana turned it. The click was sharp, too loud in the hush of the house. She opened the box. Photographs spilled out like dead butterflies, curling at the edges. Dozens of them, black and white. Polaroid's color prints faded by time children. All black, all young, maybe 5 to 10 years old. Their faces solemn, some smiling faintly, others wide-eyed and terrified. In every photo, they were sitting on the same chair, a high-backed wooden thing, its arms carved with shapes that looked like vines. And in some of the pictures behind them stood a man. Not the man in the hoodie, older. Heavy-set, his face always just out of frame, like he'd leaned away at the last second. Tiana's stomach heaved as she shuffled through the stack, her hands trembling harder with each image. Then one photo slid free and landed face up on the floor. Her own eyes stared back. She was 6 years old in that picture, wearing the yellow jumper her mother always made her wear on Sundays. Same chair, same shadow of a man in the corner. Her heart stopped. The flashlight slipped from her hand and rolled across the floor beam, spinning. Her phone vibrated. A new text flashed on the screen. "Didn't know you'd forget?" Before she could breathe, before she could even scream, the hallway light flickered, and the front door lock clicked open, slowly, deliberately. The door eased inward with a groan, and the man in the hoodie stepped inside. No rush, no fear, just that same crooked smile carving through his scar. And in his left hand, dangling by its strap, was a camera click. The flash went off like a white explosion. Tiana stumbled back, blind spots dancing across her vision, as the man's voice filled the hall, smooth and warm like oil, ready for the next picture. The photo at her feet was like a wound she couldn't stop staring at. 2 children, both sitting stiffly in that same high-backed chair carved with vines. A boy maybe 7, a girl younger, 4, maybe 5, both with skin like hers eyes, too big for their faces, their wrists circled with beads spelling out names. Tiana's pulse rattled in her ears as she crouched to pick it up. The beads on the little girl's bracelet caught the light letters faded, but still visible, Laya. The boys spelled Mike. Her stomach dropped as a memory flickered quick and vicious, like a camera flash in the dark. Tiny hands clutching hers, a voice whispering, "Don't let go." "Nessa, please don't let go." Tiana jerked her head, forcing the image away. Her breath came ragged, shallow. "Who are they?" she demanded, her voice hoarse. The man in the hoodie grinned slow and easy like he had all night. "Your family." Her throat clenched. "That's not true." He took a step closer. The floor groaned under his weight, a sound thick and final. "You really don't remember, do you?" His voice dropped to a whisper that crawled across her skin. "What happened after they stopped coming back for you? What I had to do to keep you alive?" Tiana stumbled back until her spine hit the wall. The butter knife trembled in her grip like a joke of a weapon. "You're lying. My mother, never, she would never." But her words withered when she glanced at the photos spilled across the floor. Photo after photo, kids sitting in that same chair, some smiling faintly, some hollow-eyed. And in every one the shadow of the man hovered near, just out of frame. Except for one picture buried near, the bottom of the pile. It was her mother. Younger, maybe late 20s, sitting on the edge of that same chair. Her smile was thin, brittle. And there, clutched in her lap, was a little girl with braids and pink beads in her hair. Tiana's breath fractured. That was her. The man crouched again, scooping up another picture, his scar pulling into a grin. She said she'd be back in a week. His eyes locked on hers. "You were here for 6 months, Nessa." The room tilted, colors bleeding at the edges of her vision. "No," she rasped. "That's not possible." The vent behind her rattled suddenly hard enough to make the wall tremble. Dust rained down like gray snow. Then from deep inside the ducts, a voice slid out, sharp and raw. This time no longer a whisper, but a hiss laced with fury. "He's lying." Tiana spun toward the vent, her heart vaulting into her throat. The man's smile didn't falter. "She always was stubborn," he said softly, "even after she died down there." The voice inside the vent shrieked then, so loud, so full of rage. It felt like a storm tearing through the wall's run. Before Tiana could move, the man lunged. The knife clattered from her hand as his fingers clamped around her wrist like iron. His other hand flashed something cold, metallic, pressing into her ribs, a gun. Too late, he whispered, breath hot against her ear. They all ran. Didn't help them either. Then the camera strap looped tight around her throat. The camera strap bit into Tiana's throat, choking off her breath. Her vision sparked with white bursts as the man yanked tighter, pulling her backward into the hallway like a rag doll. She clawed at the strap, nails raking his hands, her lungs burning for air. "You don't get to leave this time," he hissed against her ear, breath hot and foul. Something primal roared up inside her. She slammed her heel down on his instep with every ounce of strength she had. Bone crunched. The man grunted, loosening his grip, just enough for her to twist and drive her elbow into his scarred jaw. The strap slipped, air rushed into her lungs like fire. Tiana lunged for the butter knife, but his boot sent it skittering under the sofa. Then came the cold press of the gun barrel against her ribs. "Don't," he growled, his smile gone now, eyes flat and dead. She froze, chest heaving, her pulse pounding in her ears. But as he dragged her closer, his thumb brushing the trigger, something in the wall gave a long, low groan. Then bang. The gun exploded, the shot deafening in the narrow hallway. Tiana flinched, waiting for the pain, but it never came. The bullet had missed her and slammed into the wall behind. And that's when the house shuddered. The wall split along a hairline crack that widened, coughing out dust and something else, something that spilled across the floor in a slow, dark stream. Tiana's stomach heaved. Not blood, not quite. The liquid was thick, tarry, reeking of rot, and in it floated something small and pale, a finger bone. The man's face, contorted, rage twisted his features as he yanked her toward him again. You weren't supposed to see that, he snarled. But Tiana's eyes were locked on the widening crack, the secret bleeding out of her house like a confession. More bones tumbled free, tiny ribs, a fragment of a jaw. Then something soft and gray slid into view, matted with hair. A child's shoe followed, pink, with a cartoon rabbit faded on the side. The vent above their heads rattled violently, the metal shrieking like an animal in pain. Then the voice came again, louder than before, words flaying the silence. He buried us here, Nessa. He buried all of us. The man roared and swung the gun toward the vent, firing twice. Sparks rained as metal screamed. Tiana didn't think she moved. Her hand closed on a splintered board from the broken wall, and she drove it forward with a scream that tore her throat raw. The jagged wood punched into his shoulder. He howled. Staggering backward, the gun clattering across the floor, Tiana ran. She bolted for the front door, bare feet slapping, wood lungs burning, but before she could reach the lock, the entire house seemed to convulse. The lights flickered and went black. Then came the sound, not crying, not humming footsteps. Dozens of them racing through the walls, pounding through the vents like a drum line from hell, and woven through that thunder a chorus of voices. Children's voices, high and shrill, chanting a single phrase, over and over, until the words carved ice into her bones. Stay with us, stay with us. The man laughed through clenched teeth, his voice jagged with pain, but thick with triumph. You hear them? He panted. They never let you go. Tiana's fingers clawed at the deadbolt. It wouldn't turn. It felt fused, like the metal had melted into the frame. Behind her, the man's shadow loomed closer. His boots squelched in the black ooze bleeding from the wall. You're home now, Nessa, he said, his grin splitting wide. Right where you belong. The floor buckled under her feet with a cracking sound that rolled like distant thunder. The house groaned hungry, as if the earth beneath it was opening its mouth. And then, just before the boards gave way, the voice from the vent whispered one last time, calm as a lullaby, jump crawl space now. The floor cracked like a rifle shot board splintering under her feet. Tiana dove without thinking, her body slamming through the ragged hole as the hallway behind her erupted in chaos. Gun metal clatters. The man's roar, swallowed by the chorus of voices shrieking from the walls. She hit dirt hard, the breath exploding from her lungs. Dust choked her throat as she scrambled forward on hands and knees. The flashlight beamed, slicing wild arcs in the black. The crawl space yawned open ahead, like a throat, its damp breath curling around her skin. Behind her, the man dropped into the hole with a grunt. Wood snapped under his weight, his boots squelching in muck as he dragged himself. After her, Nessa. His voice cracked through the dark like a whip. Don't make me hurt you. Tiana shoved forward, her palms slipping in slime. The tunnel narrowed until her shoulders scraped the walls. She crawled faster, belly dragging dirt, until the beam hit something ahead, a wooden panel. Her pulse spiked another wall, another dead end. No, 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 she whispered, slamming her fists against the panel. It didn't budge. Her nails scrabbled at the edges, until a strip of wood peeled away, revealing darkness beyond. A space, not a dead end, a door. She wrenched at the gap until the panel split with a groan and swung inward. And then she was tumbling into a room that shouldn't exist. It was barely 5 feet high, the walls lined with plywood, the floor littered with old blankets, cracked toys, and glass. Jars that glimmered in her trembling beam, jars filled with buttons, beads, bits of cloth, and hair. Tiana gagged, bile scorching her throat. Her flashlight caught a splash of color on the far wall, names scrawled and childish. Handwriting, jagged and desperate, Leah Mike Nessa. Her breath sawed in her chest, the letters blurred, swimming in her tears. She was here before, not just for a night, not for a week, for months. Her body knew it, even if her mind had buried it deep. She could almost feel the cold of those blankets, the weight of hunger gnawing her belly, the sound of her own voice whispering in the dark. Behind her, the panel exploded inward with a shower of splinters. The man shoved through his hoodie, smeared with black ooze, his scar twisting as he grinned like the devil himself. Found you, he crooned, his voice sweet as syrup. Just like old times. Tiana grabbed the nearest thing, a jagged jar lid and gripped it tight as his bulk filled the room. His shadow swallowed her. You don't get it, do you? He rasped, crouching low his breath. A furnace on her face. You were never a victim, Nessa. You were the favorite, the one who survived. The words slammed into her heavy and slick like blood on tile. What are you talking about? She choked, his grin widened eyes glittering in the beam like shards of glass. They didn't die because of me, he whispered. They died because of you. Something inside her cracked, then not the house this time, but the last thread holding her together. The vent above their heads rattled a howl, tearing through the ducks' voices. Overlapping like a storm, liar, 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 the man laughed wild and sharp and lunged. Tiana swung the jar lid glass, shattered blood sprayed. His scream filled the crawl space like fire as the jar shards carved deep into his face. He fell sideways, thrashing, and his gun skittered across the dirt toward her hand. She grabbed it. For the first time all night, the voices fell silent. The barrel gleamed in her shaking grip, her breath coming in ragged bursts as the man groaned on the floor, one hand clutching his ruined cheek. Above them, the house moaned like something alive and hungry. The gun shook in Tiana's grip, her breath jagged and hot in the stifling dark. The man writhed on the dirt floor, blood pumping from his cheek in a thick red river, his smile finally gone, replaced by something raw and feral. You're just like me. He rasped, his voice torn to ribbons. You always were. Shut up, Tiana hissed, pressing the barrel hard against his forehead. Her fingers trembled so violently she could feel the steel quiver. He laughed, a wet, gurgling sound. Go ahead, Nessa. Pull it, then what? The house won't let you leave. As if summoned, the walls groaned. Dust rained from the ceiling. The vent above their heads rattled with a metallic shriek, and the voices rose again, this time louder than ever. Children's voices, high and fractured, chanting like a hymn. Stay with us, stay with us, stay. Stop, Tiana, screamed, her voice ripping out of her throat. Silence fell so suddenly, it felt like a vacuum sucked the air from the room. The only sound was the drip, drip, drip of blood into the dirt. Then from the vent a single voice whispered, soft, trembling, and heartbreakingly familiar. Nessa, please. Tiana froze, her breath hitched, tears burning her eyes. Leia? The voice trembled again. Oh, left us. The words cleaved through her like a blade. Memory crashed over her in a tidal wave. Leia's small arms wrapped around her waist. Mike's voice whispering in the dark, the promise she made and broke. I'll come back. I swear, I'll come back. Her stomach hollowed with grief, so deep it felt like it might swallow her whole. I didn't know, she whispered, her voice splintering. I didn't remember. The man chuckled low, the sound bubbling in his throat like tar. Now you do. Rage detonated inside her chest. Every nerve, every scar in her mind burned white hot. Tiana pressed the barrel harder until it dug into his skull. For them, she said through clenched teeth, and pulled the trigger. Bang. For a moment there was only silence. Then the house breathed, the vent exhaled one last whisper, soft as a sigh. Thank you. The chanting stopped. The footsteps faded, the air in the crawl space warmed, no longer clotted with rot. Tiana dropped the gun, her hands shaking so violently it bounced on the dirt. She crawled out of the room, her knees, raw lungs clawing for air. Behind her, the man's body lay, still, his blood feeding the earth that had hidden so many before him. She stumbled into the night, through the shattered garage door, just as the first sirens wailed in the distance. Her body sagged against the hood of her car, sweat and tears slicking her skin. The sky was bleeding gray dawn, creeping over South Central. Neighbors peeked through curtains as cruisers screeched to a stop. Officers spilled out guns, raised voices, barking questions she couldn't answer. Not yet, maybe not ever, because as Tiana lifted her trembling hands in the cool morning air, one last sound brushed her ear, a voice so faint she almost thought she imagined it. Go, Nessa, don't come back. She closed her eyes, a sob breaking free, and when she opened them, she walked toward the flashing lights, leaving the house behind as it sagged under the weight of its secrets. But in the shattered window by the porch, A camera flash sparked once in the dark, bright as bone click. Not every story ends with justice. Some just stop where the paperwork does. But if you listened closely, this wasn't just about what happened. It was about what we ignore, the assumptions we let slide, the voices we tune out because they don't come in the right tone. Somewhere someone's living with the fallout of this story, not as a headline, but as their everyday. So if this story stayed with you, don't let it fade. Shine it forward. Ask more doubt, what's too quiet? Because what we choose to see or not see decides what happens next. Like, comment, share. Not for clicks, but for clarity. Because awareness is how silence breaks and how truth finds daylight.